Hello and welcome back to Primary School. My name is Oliver Heller. I'm a producer on the podcast.
My name is Lucy Ackman. I'm also a producer on the podcast.
This week, we're stepping in to host an episode with Corinne Fisher, stand-up comedian, writer, co-founder, and host of the podcast Guys We Fucked and Without a Country. Now Corinne's running for mayor, and we're very excited to interview her about her candidacy. Corinne, thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the Primary School podcast. This is going to be episode 6 for us.
Nice.
But
Good number.
You're our second candidate, so this is very exciting.
Thank you.
And I also wanted to congratulate you on recently getting in your signatures, which is such a huge step in the process.
Not easy. Many times when I go, oh, okay, that's not the number we wanted this weekend.
Right.
But yeah. I thanks to my team as well. They were out there, and we have so many wonderful volunteers, and then also canvassers on staff, and they're really just excited to be working for this campaign. So I want to shout them out.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. So you said recently you wouldn't be a regular mayor, but you'd be a cool mayor.
Did I say that publicly? Yeah. Oh man, I really got to
Without a Country.
Well, okay. I was like, you are listening to something where I'm not.
In the context of the Charlemagne.
I'm not in mayor mode. Okay, I'm in me mode.
Yes. So with that in mind, do you think you're the candidate that resonates the most with young people?
I don't necessarily want to claim that space. I mean, I think there is, another candidate who is definitely the toast of the town right now, who young people really love, and it makes sense, is younger than me by 6 years.
Scott Stringer.
Yes, it's Scott Stringer. Oh my God, that's very funny. I have no comment on him. But I think I am someone who definitely is receptive to younger candidates. Again, I don't want to claim that space, but I think I'm definitely like one of their choices as soon as they find out about me. One of the main goals that I have in running for mayor is that I want to get young people out to vote. I think so many young people have really lost faith in their government, and rightly so. But the one thing that I haven't lost faith in this process, and part of why I wanted to run, is to see what's really going on. Is there corruption? I have a really non-traditional life. I can pause. And I have the ability to fundraise through non-political resources. So I was like, let me really take advantage of this privilege that I have and see what's going on. And the one thing that I have not lost faith in is the power of voting. But we have to show up at the polls and do it. Right now, it's about 5% of New Yorkers who are making the decision for all of New York City. And we wonder why things aren't getting better. Well, that's part of the reason. And I certainly don't want to put the burden on the people of New York, but we do have to participate in our government if we want to make it better, which is why I was so excited to do this podcast today. I mean, I think it's great, especially municipal politics. People are really, tend to concentrate on the big picture, the national politics, but the corruption starts in municipal politics. We cannot take our eyes off of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll say we've really on various forums, we've heard you say, I'm a citizen who's going out and doing this. We kind of feel that way too.
Right.
We're citizen podcasters.
Yeah.
Just
everyday New Yorkers.
Yeah. Just throwing something together and trying to, increase the amount of information that young people are getting.
Yeah. Ask questions, push buttons. Don't take these polished answers that politicians are going to give us. I'm sure I come off a little bit bumpier in forums because I don't know how to properly dodge questions, quite frankly. My campaign manager many times has been like, Corinne, you don't actually have to answer the question. And I go, I disagree. I feel like you do. I feel like, especially young people are really listening to the question that's asked and they want the response. Yeah. I don't think that's a lot to ask.
That is something I think about all the time. But for me, sometimes it works the opposite way, in which I feel like it actually, so I will say that, Zoran Mamdani, who's a candidate in this election,
Who's he? No, I'm just
just a small.
It's cool. Honestly, we're in competition, but it's cool to watch. I'm a big fan of underdogs. Right. If you read articles about him, I mean, even in January, everyone's laughing at him, and I go, okay, well, I'll take the spot of getting laughed at now. Yeah. We'll just keep, passing the torch.
Right. Yeah. So I went to a fundraiser for his original Assembly member campaign. So this is back in 2020.
Great. Good.
And the thing that struck me about him was he really was willing to talk about the kinds of things that you don't hear politicians talk about, which specifically for him as like a socialist DSA candidate was this sort of like leftist theoretical stuff, right? Something that would be totally typical in like, let's say a liberal arts English class.
Right.
But you'd never ever hear a politician say, even our most prominent socialist politicians, coming off of Bernie's, second presidential campaign, you wouldn't hear him address that on the national stage very much, I think, because I think the rule of thumb is it turns voters off.
Yeah, there's things that you want to stay away from. You want to tiptoe around. You want to not give a direct answer. And I think we're all sick of that. There's a reason that Donald Trump won a second term, and it's because I don't agree with what he's saying, but I think like if we don't learn something from him being reelected, we're going to keep getting in the same situation. It's telling us people want something different, and they want a candidate who's going to speak to us in terms that we understand. If you're listening to Without a Country, I'm sure you've heard me go on and on about how we have to stop, specifically in leftist spaces, using political and legal jargon that the average person doesn't understand. You shouldn't feel too dumb to belong to a political party. Yeah. That's a problem.
Yeah.
I guess the thing that I feel is that it goes the other way too, in which like voters also don't want to be spoken down to all the time, right? There are things that they're going to understand just sort of like on a basic level that I feel like these politicians avoid all the time. That's what
avoidance. Absolutely.
Yeah. So with that in mind, we have these sort of two frames, I think, that we're starting to set up, right? There's what we've seen with Donald Trump and with other Republican men, frankly, right? Show business, actors, Ronald Reagan, Arnold Schwarzenegger, to national politics. And on the Democratic Party, we haven't seen that as much. Obviously, there's like Al Franken and stuff. It's not never happened, but it feels much rarer. It feels a little more unlikely. Our outsiders tend to be more socialist, AOC, Che-O-Se. These long shot campaigns have come from a socialist perspective. Do you feel like you're bridging that gap in terms of bringing this show business perspective?
You know what? It's so funny because I took a hiatus from entertainment business. Not that I don't love it. I do love it. There's a lot of things I have a problem with. I just was so tired of talking about myself and all my accomplishments being focused on like how many followers I have, or how many people watch my comedy special, or does this joke about me hit? And politics was not the right space to go to find relief from that. I am finding out the hard way. There's so much, I just want to get out and spend time talking to the people of New York City. That's my favorite part of this campaign by far. Even when people yell at me, which has happened a lot, people are angry. And again, rightly so. But we really rely on these character, like voting based on character and name recognition. So that's why I think the right is seeing a lot of success in these entertainment-based candidates. Am I trying to create that on the left? Not necessarily, but what I'm trying to do is trying to make the left a little bit more open to non-traditional candidates that aren't backed by just another political machine, which I do have to say, I think the Democratic Socialists of America is just replacing one political machine with another. And I think a lot of my criticism for the DSA comes with, how they treated AOC. They lifted her up, and then similar to the entertainment business, as soon as she wasn't doing exactly their bidding, they go, I don't think we're gonna knock you down. We created you and we can break you. That's a mentality that the public in general, but specifically the US public really has. And I don't love it. I've experienced it in the entertainment world, and then I've, witnessed it happen in politics. And I think AOC is doing a great job. Not that she is without criticism, but when you look at her trajectory, when you look at this oligarchy tour that her and Bernie Sanders are going on, she's pulling pop star numbers in stadiums. This is incredible. And this is exactly what the Democratic Party needed. We need someone who's going to get us as excited about politics as we are about Charlie XCX, who I also love.
Yes, me too. Speaking of pop stars, you have a pretty eclectic campaign team, including Stephen Jenkins of Third Eye Blind.
I'm gonna love that he's now officially included on the campaign team.
And your comedy, your longtime comedy and podcast partner and co-host, Christina Hutchinson. So what was it like assembling a campaign team, and were people willing to come along? Did you want some outsiders also involved within the team?
I always want outsiders. I love to create a problem, honestly. I think the best solution to a problem is by creating a bunch of small problems to get, attention. Not for myself, but for the problem. And I mean, Christina was just a natural fit. We had just done the Daily Show election special with Jordan Klepper right before the presidential election. We went to a Donald Trump rally in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. And it was a really interesting experience for us. We got to talk to all these huge MAGA people. And I think, especially for Christina, it really helped her see the point that I'm trying to get across on Without a Country, is that we need to talk to people. I think people just want to be able to afford to live in America, to raise a family. I don't think our interests are actually that different. And I think people want to feel heard. And people were really kind to us, even though we had vastly different political and social views. And then going from that, I mean, I vowed on an Instagram story that if Donald Trump was to win the presidential election, I would be running for public office. And, you're going to take the people who know you best on that trip with you. And I told Christina what I was thinking of doing. And she was like, I would absolutely love to be a part of that. So why not? I mean, she's been my business partner for, 15 years now. And then Stephen Jenkins is just, Christina and Stephen just happened to be working on an environmental project. I don't know if I can say that together. Stephen is super involved in environmentalism on the West Coast and worldwide when he tours. And so she just kind of mentioned to him in passing that I was thinking of, running for mayor, and he wanted to get involved. And he's a really smart guy. And obviously there is this correlation between the ability to make yourself famous and the ability to get people's attention on the future that you want to see for your city or your country.
Was there a single moment before the Instagram story, after the Instagram story, where you're like, this is real, I can see myself being mayor, and I can see myself running this campaign?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't come like out of the blue. Like that's when I kind of set a deadline for myself, I suppose. It had been a conversation that I had been having with my listeners on Without a Country for years. My initial goal was I really wanted to lend my platform and, an amount of finances to specifically, most likely a young woman who wanted to run for public office, wherever that may be. And I could give her access to speak on my show, both Without a Country and GWF, and I could, donate to the campaign financially within the limits of whatever was allowed and where she was running. And I really tossed that around for I think, several years, and just no one was interested. And so I said, you know what, I think this is something that I need to do myself and report back to the people of America.
Yes.
It kind of sounds crazy, but we need to start thinking a little bit more outside the box. And so was there a moment, I mean, I kind of every moment of this campaign is just like, oh, what have you gotten yourself into now? You're just getting deeper and deeper into it. And I did expect to see a lot of corruption and inside baseball, but it's a little more than I had originally assessed, so that's disappointing. But again, I do want to get back to the positive, which is vote. Please vote. Yeah. That is the bare minimum we should be doing.
Yeah. Can I ask you, on the corruption inside baseball note,
right,
the other candidates,
yeah,
could you talk a little bit about them? How do you feel about this sort of slate of major candidates? Do you have some preferences? I
mean, I have a preference in not Andrew Cuomo, obviously not Eric Adams, but that's not a concern right now for the primary, which is what I want to focus on for June 24th vote. I mean, I'm stunned. It's crazy that this is a man who, a couple, the amount of years I can count on one hand, was a shamed governor who had to step down, had a 70%, plus disapproval rating. And now those same people who told him to step down are running to endorse him. And that really speaks to what is going on in politics. Whatever is kind of in vogue is what people want to do. So it was in fashion then to call for him publicly to step down, to get on your Instagram and say, yes, step down, because that was the cool thing to do then. But now when we see him polling at like 40%, and you know that this is a man who is known to be vindictive, is known to be retaliatory, is an extremely powerful figure in politics, they're all racing to endorse him because they don't want to feel the venom of his retaliation. And we have to be bolder. We have to be like, you know what, I am willing to fight for him. And that's why we had Lindsey Boylan on GWF, which I'm sure, Cuomo's team saw and put another target on me, because this is not a man, he's not functioning normally. He's not just being like, oh, I'm going to concentrate on the people who are polling the highest. This is a man who is going to take down every person, small or large, in his pathway who speaks ill of him. And if the people of New York, who are smart people, who are informed and active people, can't see that, I don't exactly know how we're going to handle that. And that's, and all the candidates feel that way. I saw Brad Lander speak last night at a mayoral forum, and I was really so pleasantly surprised that he said, I think all the candidates can agree, other than Andrew Cuomo, that our number one goal here is not me needs to win. It's that Andrew Cuomo needs not to win. And when someone who has put the years into politics, like Brad Lander, is saying that at a mayoral forum, we need to really listen up. Because, he's a rather traditional politician. He is not...
Absolutely.
He's not like, scrappy. He's really traditional. And so I was like really pleasantly surprised, but it also is alarming. That's really showing you the level of danger that the Democrats think we are in here.
Do you think to some extent we might have like this very early polling to blame for this entire Cuomo phenomenon, in that like if he wasn't dominating the polling, we might not see everyone rushing to get in line and avoid his vengeance?
That's interesting. I don't necessarily doubt that. I think there's a lot of problems in polling. Polling also, I think, diverts our attention in the wrong direction a lot. We see constantly problems with polling in presidential elections. Who are you polling? I mean, for me as a candidate to talk about polling, I'm not even, polling, you're giving the constituents a multiple choice. And so right now, I'm under other candidate. My name is not even there because they just keep gatekeeping. They refuse to let me in. The bone I have to pick right now actually is more so with local political reporters. And this is tough for me because I'm a real big advocate of free press. And I love going into this race. I really love journalists, and I have a bigger bone to pick with them now because we see this access press and we see this gatekeeping. And we talk, everyone's so angry about Andrew Cuomo. Well, then stop writing articles about him. Even these negative ones. We all kind of, as Americans, agree all press is good press. We see it work in the entertainment business time and time again. And there is this also like kind of bad boy mentality right now in politics where like if a group of people is going really hard against a candidate, there's this other half of us that go, oh, that must make him really cool and really powerful, right? We all want to be contrarian.
And that strain is dominating our entire politics now. It's so crazy.
Absolutely.
Today I was thinking about, everyone says, oh, we need our own Joe Rogan. We need a liberal Joe Rogan. I was like, we need our own liberal Kill Tony. We need our own irreverent group of, I won't say anything expletive, but
It's your podcast. doesn't bother me. I think we need more expletives in politics. I was going over a story on my show last night from Politico where they were kind of almost reprimanding Representative Jasmine Crockett for using, coarse language. And I'm just like, the country's going to shit. We need to say fuck. Exactly. Sorry, you can bleep that out if you need to.
No, it's okay.
We'll keep it in.
That's like the least of our worries. We're talking profanity.
Yeah, exactly.
How about the fact that people can't afford to buy homes anymore? Yeah, how about that?
Exactly.
What? It's crazy, really. Just we're constantly concentrating on the wrong things.
Yes.
Yeah, I do. I agree with the dirtbag left Chapo Trap House thing of like when we gave up the expletives, the edginess to the right, like things started to switch because then they owned everything. Then they were good, they were bad, they were Christian, they were what was Andrew Schultz saying? They were getting pussy.
I don't listen to every Andrew Schultz.
I don't either.
I mean, he's in my algorithm. He is a friend of mine. But
yeah, I think it was actually for me. It was like a Bulwark thing. The Bulwark guy is like fighting with him, so that's like been popping up on my timeline of like. I can't pay that.
But even that is a very interesting discussion, especially when it comes to voting with young people. How our world view is kind of being curated by Meta. I mean, definitely. That's alarming.
It's terrifying.
Right. Yeah, we all just moved on from like the China election interference.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it also makes us think that more people share our opinions than actually do, which is why we end up being shocked when Hillary Clinton loses the election or shocked when Kamala Harris loses the election. And we really shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, but also I will say my Instagram has gone a little crazy post Zuckerberg flip, post Trump inauguration. Like now I get a wider variety. I guess it's like more just like generally conservative stuff. I feel like I'm seeing. Yeah, just like personally. And like I did feel like it was kind of like a hard, I don't know if you have like a perspective on this as like a content creator, but I did feel like it was kind of like a hard switch. He was like going and testifying or whatever, and then he was doing the podcast circuit saying like, yeah, I was pressured into being liberal, like we're conservative now or whatever.
Well, right. I mean, it's the same flip that we see these politicians who were anti-Cuomo now who are pro-Cuomo doing. It's like we're all just going to follow the money and follow the attention. That's not, I don't think that's people that we want to trust. I mean, and also, did you, in your settings on Instagram, did you flip the tab to allow yourself to see political content, or is that off for you?
I don't know. I didn't change anything. So if it was on, it was on. If it was off, it was off.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, I went through it step by step. I don't know how to explain it off the top of my head without looking at, the steps you need to take. But I think that is something to, to tell young people, especially when you're getting a lot of information from Instagram, make sure that you're saying, I want to hear about these things.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely important across the board for all age groups. Should we do a little policy talk?
Let's talk policy.
I can start. I'm really interested in your idea to kind of revitalize the arts in New York and how you think that's important. And I would love to hear you talk a little bit about the audition-based affordable housing and just the general revitalization of arts in New York City and why it's important.
Absolutely. So, I mean, New York City, especially pre-COVID, was a town of vibrant nightlife. And so when we talk about the arts, not that the arts only happen at night, the kind of arts that I'm involved in do only happen at night for the most part, stand-up comedy, but also music, the Comedy Cellar on McDougal Street when 10 years ago, even when I was, in my earlier years of comedy, was flooded with music. It felt like Nashville or New Orleans, and now it's a much quieter street. I mean, some of that has to do with noise complaints, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that artists are not able to afford to live in New York City. It's a trajectory that if you take, you're most likely going to be pretty broke in the beginning. You're gonna have to get some type of hourly, minimum wage job to get through the morning, and then you're gonna have to dedicate the rest of your time to the arts. And so we don't want to lose artists. Whether or not artists certainly don't want to have to leave New York City. It's arguably one of the best cities in the country to pursue your dreams in the world, artistically. But when we talk to people who aren't involved in the arts at all, well, this is still $100 billion, source of revenue for the city of New York. So we don't want to lose that. We want to encourage the most talented people to stay. And the same way that colleges are doing an admissions process, obviously, ideally, everyone can stay. But if we're thinking about it in a way that serves the city and also serves artists, affordable housing based on audition just makes sense. People who we really see a bright artistic future for should stay, because they are going to then add to our economy, and we don't want to lose them to Los Angeles or Chicago, which is happening at a really high level. I think the difference between perhaps some of my policies and other people who are more far left is that there is going to be a way to pump the income into the rest of the city. It's not just giveaways, which I know people just want giveaways, but the question that liberals are always asked is, how are you going to pay for that? And so for every policy that I had, I wanted an answer for the question, how are you going to pay for that? And then not only that, but part of my arts program is also making the arts more accessible for low income individuals. There's a lot of complaints from the constituents that this has become a city that really only caters to transplants. And I don't want that to be the feeling. There is resentment from Native New Yorkers against transplants. And I get it. I'm a transplant, even though I moved here when I was 17 years old, I'm still a transplant. And I get that. And I respect that. And all the things that we move here to pursue, these dreams that we move here to pursue, Native New Yorkers also need the opportunity to pursue those dreams if they wish, but also to enjoy these, touristy reasons why people visit New York. I know so many Native New Yorkers who never have been to a Broadway show because they can't afford it. That's inexcusable.
Yeah, I will say, as a native New Yorker, I don't buy transplant discourse, because
Oh yeah, I was I feel it heavily at some of these mayoral forums. But good on you.
Well, local politics is always going to be I've been here for 3 generations.
Right.
Yeah, but I just think it's New York. This is the place where it doesn't matter where you came from, right?
And it makes it special. We all come from everywhere.
Yeah. And I think just you don't have to be here that long, I think, to know if you're either going to make it or not make it. And
to know if you can handle it, I think, for sure. The first week you're just sweating, you're blowing your nose, and black is coming out because you're not used to this level of pollution.
Right, yeah.
You got to toughen up.
Hey,
quick.
it's gotten a little bit.
I just remember being in my dorm at SVA and just blowing my nose for the first time and being buckle up, babe. Yeah.
Okay, I would like to ask about your idea to mandate therapy for New York City policemen and women, because I will say that personally, I feel a lot of the power of therapy comes from this voluntary vulnerability. So it feels to me being mandated might rob some of that kind of power of doing so.
The autonomy we're trying to give. Yeah, that's a great point. Part of this is, this is not just me coming in being you guys are treating everyone badly, you need therapy. Part of this policy was really developed looking at the statistics of how many people wanted to access mental health resources in the NYPD but still felt this stigma around it. So right now we have PAPA, which enables police officers to access mental health care if they want, but there still is that, I want to call it a boys club mentality where what, you can't handle the job, you have to go to therapy. So for me, it was really in releasing officers of that stigma. And I think you would start the program by having a talk with all the officers, being this is a really difficult situation that you're putting yourself in. You're going to work every day with a real good opportunity of being violently attacked, attacked with a weapon. That's no matter what we think of the police, that's a big ask. And especially at the starting rate of $55,000, don't even get me started on that. There's ads all over the subway. Be a rookie cop. Pay starts at $55,000. And we wonder why we're having trouble recruiting officers. Who's signing up in New York City, with the cost of living what it is, most of these officers can't even afford to live in New York City. It's $55,000 starting salary when you could have a gun drawn on you. No thanks.
Right.
Who's signing up for that? So for me, the mandatory was not to be like, you need to sit down and do this. It was to release these officers from the stigma. Again, I've certainly had my share of negative experiences with the NYPD. That being said, I think, the left attempted to introduce defund the police, and it didn't go over. People, overall still want a police force presence. So we have to figure out how to heal this wound that exists between many of the people of New York and the NYPD. And I think actually showing care for these officers who many times are not responding in a way that is ideal is a great stepping stone. And I know it feels a little unorthodox to be nice to people that we're angry at, but I really heartily believe that this will be the first step towards healing that wound. And then after that, we're getting these officers off their phones. We're getting them out of their cars. We're getting them to be patrolling the same neighborhoods every day so they get to know the people, so that it's not us against them or them against us. This is Officer so-and-so, and I know him or her because they're always around in my community. And they know me, and they know that no matter what I look like, what clothes I wear, what kind of, when I'm around, I'm not a bad person. I'm not a criminal.
Sounds good.
Yeah. To pivot a little bit into education, a policy of yours that I'm super interested in is the idea of changing or adding to school curriculums, adding a kind of critical thinking program to help improve media literacy with the next generation.
Yeah.
What would that look like specifically? Like, what kind of changes are you envisioning for these curricula?
Yeah, I mean, so I think, when I first looked at the role of mayor, you're looking at what changes you actually can make. So I think there's this there's a disconnect where people don't know who is in charge of what. And sometimes people are asking the mayor for things that are really, handled at a state level or handled on a national level. And so, the mayor of New York City has a lot of control over the public education system. So I just wanted to clear that up. That's why I really wanted to go for that. I'm the daughter of a public school teacher. I myself am a graduate of the public school system, specifically in New Jersey, which again, I'm taking as a pro, not a con. Because New Jersey has one of the top 10 public education systems in the country. Everyone likes to shit on New Jersey, but we're really good with education. So I know what a good public education system can look like. And so, when you're putting together a curriculum, I think we really need to think about people's future. We're often talking about that we need to add classes on how to do your taxes, on how to budget, how to invest, I think would be great. So those are all talked about. What we're talking about less is media literacy, which is important because it's how these young people are going to make decisions about who they cast a ballot for. I think it's a start of not ignoring how we're intaking news. And so instead of just doing what the left has been doing, which is being like, no, you still have to read the New York Times to get your news, as the left absolutely destroys us in podcasting and gets so many voters that way. I mean, Media Matters just released a whole bunch of pie graphs about that. I want to, start at the foundation and give people from the start the tools to understand how to know what is fake news. I hate even using that. It's been bastardized, but what is fake news? What is real news? To know that you can't necessarily take something as fact unless you've seen it in, at least 2 credible sources. To not just take at face value even what a journalist is telling you, do a little bit more just additional research and just have the ability to do all those things out of the gates. And then critical thinking is something that I think often in a traditional school setting is we really shy away from. Like, standardized testing is not based on critical thinking. Standardized testing is based on memorization or understanding how to do certain mathematics. When you look at what the education system looks like, being your own person is kind of frowned upon. But like me, when I talk about what my level of expertise is in, it's being myself. And I know the value in that, and I know how it's enabled me to launch myself to levels that perhaps, I wouldn't have normally thought were possible, based on even like the income level I was born into. So I think it's positive when we have, young people who embrace their individuality. I think that's going to create entrepreneurs and people who will go on to create businesses and make money, which is what we want in America, right? It's really weird because like we really want let's say capitalism to be happening. We really want people to be making money and contributing to our economy, but then we're not allowing people to think freely. Mm-hmm. So those two things don't work together. Mm-hmm. Make a decision, America.
Yeah. To stay on education, you have a plan to, I think, raise teacher salaries citywide, but specifically incentivize teachers to by paying teachers who teach at really difficult public schools more. Mm-hmm. I will say that I went to a public school in New York City. Mm-hmm. I went to a public school. At the time, the public school that I went to was the number one ranked public school in the state. And it was also, I will also say it was a very new school. Mm-hmm. So basically the teachers who were there were hired by the second principal, who was still there and part of the founding team of the school. So, which is kind of a unique situation for a New York public school. Yeah. And obviously gives you a lot of control over your staff. Mm-hmm. But I also think that those things aside, being in that environment, right, the success of the school was really based on the success of the teachers, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of them had come out of schools, some of which were failing, right? There's a school down the road which was slated to be closed that a good number of teachers had come over for. Mm-hmm. And obviously, to some extent, that does speak to your point, right? Because they left a failing school and it probably only made the situation worse. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, maybe they paid their dues and they had this opportunity to teach at a really great school and have this great experience, and contribute to a successful school environment. Mm-hmm. What would you say to teachers in that situation who would then be paid less than their peers who are teaching at schools that maybe will fail anyway?
Right. I mean, like, yeah, this is, obviously this is going to be an uphill battle with the teachers union. I am not, I know this.
Well, everything is an uphill battle with the teachers union.
But yeah, I mean, I totally see your point. And, certainly I've gotten a lot of reactions like this from other public school teachers in New York City who argue that teaching is a really important job and we should all be paid more, which is why I wanted to start out by lifting the salary for all New York City public school teachers, right? Because that's me saying I agree with you. The starting salary for a public school teacher right now, I believe, is $66,000. Okay, it's a really tough job. And again, we look at the same problem that we see with the NYPD, where we're not paying these people who work in the city and interact with the people of the city enough to really even live in the city themselves. It's just not enough money, and certainly not to live in a way that is comfortable. So you're starting there, but this argument, I mean, it kind of I don't want to like compare it to like NIMBYism, but I do feel this on the left, like, right, we want changes and we agree that we want things to be better for other people, but then when it really boils down to it, we're guilty of we always, point our fingers at the right, which is like, we're selfish and we still, at the end of the day, want things to be best for us individually, which is a very American perspective. But like, I'm sorry, we can't just give up on people when they're 8 years old. And so if you're going to a school that's underperforming, like, yeah, teachers don't have to stay there. No one's mandating that a teacher teach at a specific school. But I think to say that you're all going to get paid the same no matter what, even if your job is much harder, even if you're dealing with much higher level behavioral issues and is unfair, there has to be some incentive. And my argument would be that in the school that you talked about, that was a pleasant work experience, the incentive that you're working with right there is the reward of having a much more peaceful day. And that is worth money. Like, I mean, in my life, I have certainly pivoted, entertainment business is a great example of this, right? So I have a rule when I'm in the entertainment business, when I'm, in my life as a stand-up comedian, where I'm pivoting between jobs I do for money and jobs I do for joy. And those are never the same jobs, unfortunately. Course, I mean, I have doing my GWF podcast, which is called Guys We Fucked. I don't know why I'm saying this. Guys We Fucked. Woo! So doing Guys We Fucked podcast, I created with Christina this ability to do something that both brought me money and brought me joy. But that's why it's one of Pantheon's 101 most influential podcasts of all time, is because it's so rare to be able to do that. And it really struck a chord with people. So that would be my argument. It's like, hopefully if you're in teaching, you're in it because you really want to see a future of people who, no matter where they're coming from economically, they have a chance at the very beginning to be given the same tools as everybody else. That's my argument here, right? And so, I would just say, no one's asking you to stay there forever. No one's asking to make your life miserable, to be some kind of a martyr. And so, maybe put in your 2 years to do this work that you perhaps consider to be more philanthropic, and then go over to something that brings you more joy. I think there can be joy found both places. But one, you're gonna need a cocktail after, know? There is no argument that anyone is going to present to me that is gonna have me say, I guess it's just too hard to teach those kids. There has to be a solution. And right now, the easiest and fastest one that I can think is a monetary incentive. And, people are being oh, what, $5,000 extra a year? No, I'm not talking about $5,000. Obviously, it has to be at least $10K a year for you to do that. And again, it's your choice. You have the choice to do it.
And would the salary increases specifically be for teachers leaving schools to go to new schools that are struggling? Or if you're working in a struggling school, do you just automatically get that?
That's a great question.
Increase?
I think you don't want it to be like the T-Mobile plan where, they're trying to get new subscribers and you only get a discount if you're coming new. That always feels like a slap in the face. So great question. No, we should be giving the financial incentive to people who already work there too, because that's going to boost morale in the entire school. You don't want to create animosity between teachers who all have to work together in this educational community. That's not going to work. And again, I truly would compare it to a T-Mobile plan that makes us all angry and we all want to run a right customer service. But, right now it's a lot of new teachers who can't find positions who are, ending up at these schools. So it's like kind of the worst case scenario. You have the least amount of experience and you're going into the toughest situation.
Yeah. And now a lot of times it's also, these schools are supplemented by, because in New York City you need a graduate degree to teach. We see all this influx of sort of charter style nonprofit 22-year-old teachers who technically work for a nonprofit and are teaching in public schools that are struggling.
Yeah, and when you're 22, you still look like a kid. There is, you have to be a little bit authoritative to be taken seriously.
Right. Yeah.
If you hop in and you're like, hey guys, I just graduated. That's gonna we've seen the movies. It's gonna be an issue.
Yeah. Definitely. Should we move into some rapid fire questions?
We were calling them lightning round, and then thunder round.
We switched the name a lot.
All right. Which New York neighborhood has the best sense of humor?
Best sense of humor? Probably Queens. I would say. I would go Astoria because I think it's in Queens, and I just spend the most time in Astoria.
Yeah.
But you have to go where you're going to be surrounded by a lot of native New Yorkers.
Totally.
Yeah. I had a baseball coach from Astoria. He was pretty funny.
Yeah.
You had a what?
A baseball coach from Astoria.
I thought you had a baseball card.
No. So you have a plan to cap rent for New York City small businesses. What's your favorite small business to support?
I have I live on the Lower East Side, so I'm shopping Lower East Side and East Village mostly by foot. I have so many. My favorite small business, I have to say, closed in January, which is a lot of my favorite small businesses closed, but specifically there was one called the March Hare, which is like an old school toy shop. Yeah, on East 9th Street. I loved it. I had gone there so many times, not to buy toys for myself. I'm at the age where a lot of my friends are having kids. And so instead of going on Amazon, I used to find such joy in going over and walking and having a conversation with the owners and picking out toys, and you would find like old school wooden toys and just like toys that like allow people to get off screens and really enjoy childhood, which is like, again, I'm not going to tell people how to raise their kids, but I was really disappointed to see that close. It was such a staple in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I had no idea that closed. I feel like I just
walked
by. Yeah,
I went to go to it like not that long ago, and I'm like, am I hallucinating? Like, was it on a different block? Because that happens a lot in New York. You're like, maybe it was on like 8th or 10th, and then you're like, oh no, it's closed. I looked on Instagram. That was my solution.
Right. That's the pretty authoritative source.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Which celebrity or comedian do you want to see run for public office?
Oh my gosh, celebrity
or national office?
This is I know. I right away, what popped into my head was a list of people I don't want to see run for office. Oh God. Who's I think is cool? Josh Johnson, I think, is a good choice. He's absolutely blowing up right now. We've seen him on The Daily Show, but this is a person who I think has like a really beautiful and empathetic perspective. So smart, so witty. I think he would make a great public servant.
Yeah, he's sharp.
Yeah.
On a similar note, who's the maybe national Democrat with the most Riz?
I mean, yeah, it is Representative Janet Crockett.
Yeah.
She has the most Riz, hands down. Yeah.
She's very charming.
Can you tell us what a day in the life of Corinne Fisher is like?
In mayor mode?
In mayor mode or not mayor mode?
Much different.
Or hybrid mode.
Much different lives. Yeah, I mean, so, God, I almost wanted to do like a get ready with me. I'm running for mayor of New York City. You wake up,
be great.
You wake up frazzled. You're 39, but you have acne all over your face because you're so stressed out about everything. You check your phone to make sure something terrible hasn't happened. Yeah, I mean, wake up. What I usually immediately do is post whatever social media content for the day. I think there's a real lack of use of social media amongst many of the candidates. I think there's only like one other candidate who is using it and using it extremely well. And we see that, which is crazy when we saw what happened with Andrew Yang and how he was running up almost solely based on social media campaign. So I think that's what I do. Yeah, then I check your email, check in with my campaign manager. I start, but usually then after that I take my Miss Ruth's vitamins, the liquid kind. They really are good. And then do 2 to 3 hours of fundraising calls, which where I'm calling people who have donated or cold calling over Zoom with my fundraising strategist. And then after that, I usually have to do some kind of policy prep. So there's a lot of studying. It feels like being in college again. You're studying for whatever mayoral forum. And again, it's not like that you don't know your policy, but I mean, we're talking pages and pages. So you have to really have a level of expertise to whatever kind of forum you're going into. Usually some kind of like podcast or interview. I'm going into Bloomberg. I'm Skyping with someone from the UK who's actually really interested in municipal politics in New York. And then at night, a lot of times doing events where I'm meeting New Yorkers in person, whether it be like a benefit based in comedy or just some kind of a meet and greet or listening opportunity. And then, right now, watching the Knicks playoffs.
Nice. Yep.
Yeah, that was tough. That was tough. I was not happy.
1-1. It's okay. They're not going to let us just enjoy it peacefully. That wouldn't even, honestly, I wouldn't even want that.
Yeah, no.
When they win too easily, I'm like, that was boring. I want to see that. I like when they make me suffer.
Yeah,
that's a great perspective. I just want one playoff blowout where I don't have to worry about it, because that would let me be like, oh, maybe they'll win a game against the Celtics. Now I have to be like, will they even play the Celtics?
Well, and I know, and the Celtics is so like there's like specific teams where you're like, not only am I rooting for the Knicks, but I'm angry at this other team.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even allowed to like speak the name of the Celtics in my house growing up.
Yeah. My dad is weird. He sort of supports all teams. He's like a Yankees and a Mets fan.
Okay,
it drives me crazy.
I feel for him though, because when people are shooting from the line, like I am kind of like, even if I hate them,
right?
Because I'm kind of like, this must be so stressful for them right now.
Right, yeah.
And it's the playoffs. Like, I don't want them to go home and be angry at themselves.
But then they make it and they must feel so good when they're being booed.
Yeah. I know. No, I never like to boo unless it's like a player that I like really hate.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, that's what, in this election and in sports, that's what drives the narrative.
Yeah.
The hateable.
Totally.
Okay. We ask everyone. Last question.
Okay.
What are your favorite like local news sources? Where are you getting your local?
My local news. I mean, I'm going wild now. I'm going like Hellgate, New York on Instagram. I mean, that's city and state. Obviously, I'm reading, but it's hard when you're in a biased personal relationship with the news source now, where they're like refusing to mention your name and stuff like that. Same goes for political. But yeah, I mean, I have really gone to, I'm going to the Dream Instagram, I'm going to Hellgate, I'm looking, and I'm also, this is the best source of information is like going to individual council members' Instagram pages and seeing what is the legislation that they're working on, what are the top priorities that they're looking at right now for the city. Like, I think it's it's certainly more time consuming, but this is my full-time job right now. So
you have a fascinating city council race going on down on Lower East Side.
You probably, well, I know you're all wondering, have I met Anthony Weiner? I have.
Right. He's back,
baby.
Finally.
He's always standing around like on my corner.
He's always around. He's been around. You
need resilience,
and he's
in this
never
business.
going away. Best of luck to him.
Well, I mean, and then Harvey Epstein knocked on my door. I mean, that was the first politician, like, since I've been living in New York City, that I remember that actually came and knocked on my door. And I really, like, even kind of gauging my visceral response to that was interesting because, like, I knew who he was, obviously. I had been at protests and events with him, but like him knocking on my door, I go, man, that really is effective. Candidate knocks on your door. I said, I feel like a little princess right now.
It's that politician thing. I had a professor in college who I went to Skidmore, so it was like Capital Region. So like our congressman was named Paul Tonko, and he came to something, and I was sitting next to my professor, my political science professor, and he was like, pretty charming, right? We had just talked to him. Pretty charming. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, you can't imagine what meeting Kirsten Gillibrand is like. She would knock your socks off.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because they've met so many people.
Yeah. So I was like, I saw her at the caucus, but I did not get to like shake her hand.
Yeah.
But it's cool. Everyone's like, oh,
Yeah.
Celebrity, celebrity culture within politics is certainly very fascinating.
Yeah.
And we hear AOC is a fan of Guys We Fucked. Or has watched a few episodes.
I knew about AOC before AOC was AOC because a guy who now does work with the city. He makes this like amazing like historical New York City content and just travels around New York. His name is Tom Delgado, awesome comedian, but also very involved politically. He had just like ran into AOC at the start of her political journey. And I guess she had mentioned the podcast to him. And then, of course, he reported back to me because he's been a longtime friend. Mm-hmm. And then so to see what's happened with her career is incredible. You can tell, though, she's really well-versed in comedy in general. Like, even when everyone was confused about, Tony Hinchcliffe and who he was speaking at the Donald Trump rally, AOC was like, I know who that is. Yeah. Like, she has her finger on the pulse, which I think is something that a lot of politicians have taken for granted in previous years, and now is something that we really need to see our politicians need to know what's going on in our lives.
Yeah. And there's a duality to it now where like there's digital and there's IRL.
Yep.
And a lot of people. I mean, you can see with these candidates, like it's hard to adapt to the digital.
Oh, it is. When you've been used to doing something the same way for so long, it's hard to do it in a new way. But I mean, even like in, how my vision for New York City as far as like staying in constant contact with constituents, like, I mean, we have technology now. The mayor shouldn't just be doing, showing up once a year or something for a state of the city. We should be checking in at least monthly. There's no excuse. We have technology.
Yeah.
You can upload a video. Tell us what's going on. 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You have so much staff.
Right. Yeah, in some ways, I feel like we weirdly get like less direct response from politicians now. Like if you think about like historically, like FDR, fireside address, right? Like he was speaking to the people.
Well, because we have more access now, so they have to shield people more.
Yeah, they need to.
And like I get it to a certain extent because, like I've said, like even being so new to politics, I've been accosted by people many times throughout this process already. So like, when we see our politicians leaving events or like these this theme of town halls becoming like chaotic recently, like people are angry and now they're showing up to the places that were always available, but that people weren't showing up to. And now, but they're showing up now because they've been pushed to a limit. So I think like if we made it in a way so that they had been updated all along and they didn't have to show up in person, it's very hard. You have to get a babysitter. Are you off from work yet? Like, come on. Even when I do mayoral forums, like when you do them in person, depending is 50 to a couple hundred. I did one online about land preservation, which is not even that hot of a topic, and almost 1,000 people showed up digitally.
Well, it can get a land preservation.
It can, but it's like on the list of topics. It was not at the top of anyone's platform. So it was interesting. But yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. This was such a great conversation.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Primary School. Primary School is hosted by Eli Miller, produced by Oliver Heller, Lucy Ackman, and Sean Heaney, edited by Sean Heaney and Jonathan Jalbert. The opening theme was composed by Sean Heaney, and the cover art was designed by Charlotte Heller. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Primary School NYC. And as always, remember to vote in the New York primary elections on June 24th.